not yet.
Eric's leading on.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan off Motor City Man Mouth. In case you missed the first show, please go back there and check it out. We had Dr. Michael Hutchinson out there talking about NeuroGuard Plus, a great product out there, and talks about a lot of interesting things about concussions and so forth. And this is a show that you definitely want to look for prevent concussions or do anything like that. Please check it out. But meanwhile, we'll take care of the focus on at hand. We're going to actually start out with a rest in peace, and then we're going to go ahead and get the show going. Want to send our condolences out to the Nolan family. Rest in peace, Cleveland Guardians owner Larry Nolan, who died 19/31/2025, brought the team in 2000. He was 94 today. Any thoughts about that, Eric?
You know, he was, well, the Dolans themselves, you know, obviously it's, you know, they've so far, I mean, despite not spending a lot of money, they've managed to run a team that's been mostly, for the most part, consistent in terms of making it to the postseason. And, you know, they've kind of become the team like under them. They've kind of become the team that the Oakland A's used to be, where you can't count them in, but you can't exactly count them out either.
Okay. What about you, Trent?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when Larry and his brother bought the team. Dick Jacobs did a public offering towards the end of his brother passed, and then the Dolan boys wanted to really own the team, and I think they made a transfer of that power, and I think people in Cleveland were pretty happy about a local guy and family that was still taking it on. So I thought it was a big deal for the Cleveland faithful. I think they've had a lot of success. The Dolans have faced a lot of pressure. It's hard to get back to the World Series. They obviously did that in the mid 2010s. I think it was 15 or 16. But man, it's a tough town to win. It's a gorgeous ballpark. And like Cassie said, the one thing you could talk about Cleveland is they've been pretty consistent, made some significant changes, moving the spring training facility out of Florida out to Arizona. So a lot of bold moves for the tribe, including changing their name to the Guardian. So, you know, it's been a long run for them. Now well over 25 years, I think. So pretty impressive ownership group. Sad ever to see ownership transfer power.
No question about it. All right. Well, now we have an opportunity to go from a rest in peace to a rant. How about that, Eric? I know you've been chomping at the bit to get this one going. He's just gearing back there, ready to go. I'm going to turn catchy, as Trent Clark would say, loose, right, catchy? All right. He's going to
loose.
Oh, I'm telling you, this guy's waiting to go out there and hammer time. Vlad Soapbox. All right. Toronto monumentally screwed that up. But before you comment, Vlad said the Jays were never close in negotiations. All right, Trent, we got to let the guy go. We'll comment after Cassie is done. Go ahead, Eric. The floor is yours.
I mean, the time to extend Vlad Jr. was 2 years ago when the price wasn't nearly as bad. But, you know, they knew what they had at that point in him. He was a good, consistent hitter. I mean, yeah, he had a couple, you know, quote unquote down years by his standard where he had like 90. Hitting in like the mid 90s in RBI, but still, you know, for most people, that's a pretty good year. Like, they knew what they had. They had a franchise player right there that they could build around, regardless of whether the window opens or closes. Kind of like a Jose Ramirez in Cleveland. But here's the thing: they monumentally screwed it up. It's been, I can't think of anything worse of a screw up in recent years with your franchise player than to not have him extended. Now that Juan Soto signed his deal, the price has gone through the roof. That's why Houston traded away Kyle Tucker, because they knew they weren't getting him back, and they knew that his price was about to go through the roof, so they traded him to Chicago this offseason. But man, the Blue Jays, they were better. If they knew they weren't going to be able to extend him, they were better off trading him. They've been lowballing him the whole way, yet they were okay dumping over $700 million into either Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani, but yet they leave their franchise players still hanging, basically giving him a laughable $150 million contract extension offer. I mean, let's be honest, Vlad is not nice like Jose Ramirez. He is just, he's a franchise player and demands to be treated like one. The guy's been an all-star just about every season. He finished second in the MVP voting back in 2021. I mean, has he been the same guy? No, but he's still been a great player, a guy you want in your lineup, a guy who's going to go do damage at the plate. But man, Toronto really screwed that one up. As a matter of fact, I think Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro are the most embarrassing thing that happened to Canada in a really long time, save for the Montreal Expos leaving. But you screwed it up. You had him right there. Now Bo Bichette's going to be gone because we're not even discussing him. That core you talked about, all I've seen them do is make a couple wild card appearances and not even win a playoff game. I mean, gosh, if sleepy Ed Rogers wakes up, he'll realize just how much of a travesty his team is, and he might as well let Shapiro and Atkins go because they've done nothing in recent years besides chase Alex Anthopoulos away, who is now with the Atlanta Braves and has had a wild amount of success there, including winning the World Series in 2021. But you've chased him away. You haven't made it even into the ALCS, and you've constantly been bounced from the first round, and you haven't even won a division title. Talk about wasting an opportunity. And I can't think of a bigger travesty in Canada aside from the Montreal Expos leaving than Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro all by themselves.
Well, before we turn over to you, Trent, Darcy McVille, a Canadian, by the way, says, "Hey guys, guess what? Darcy McVille will be part of the Inside the Pigskin crew. He'll probably come out once or twice a month to give us a Canadian Detroit Lion perspective." Talked to Darcy later last week. It's just a matter of trying to get him in here and pair him up with the crew. I have a great crew over there anyways. It'll be interesting to get a Canadian perspective on the Detroit Lions, since obviously aside from the Buffalo Bills being the Toronto side of the whole thing. So Darcy, glad you could tune in. Hope you keep tuning in all your shows. Be reaching out to you soon, and we'll get you on hopefully sooner than later, but you're definitely in my mind. And when you're in my mind, that means you're going to be in front of us at some point. All right, Trent, go ahead.
Yeah, welcome, Darcy. Hey, another great rant, Eric. Yeah, it's a challenge, man. I mean, I do not know the answer. I got to defend my boys here. Grew up in the league with Mark Shapiro back in the early 90s, as he was a minor league director at the time in Cleveland, doing a ton of good in player development, developing great systems. Left Cleveland for the Great White North to head up there for the President Canadian market, and took Ross Atkins, a former, I think, AA, AAA pitcher out of Wake Forest. Ross is a pretty sharp guy. Now, 150 million Canadian, US, that's 214 million Canadian. So I just want to preface this with the cost of doing business in Canada. And the challenge that market has is real. And I don't know how you navigate that. When we talk about the NHL, they have a blended dollar of US and Canadian dollar. Even though there's less Canadian teams, there are a number of them. So they can balance it out so that the market cap is on that blended rate. The US for MLB does not do that with only one team out of Canada. So Toronto continues to take and stand at the back of the bus on a bad conversion on the dollar. And, obviously 214 million. I didn't see what Vladdy's final number was. What's the final number on Vladdy's deal?
It was never really disclosed, but it was probably within two. I don't really know because it was never really disclosed. I just heard. I'm going to believe Vlad's perspective on this because naturally the front office is going to go up there saying we were close and they're going to have a we tried sort of press conference. But it was never really disclosed what the final number is. He kept on saying he even lowered it, but it's which I'm going to believe Vlad on that one, and not the front office who has to go up there and actually say we tried. Although it wouldn't shock me in Canada if it becomes the second coming of Peter Pocklington, where they burn his effigy in the middle of the street.
Oh my God, that was good. Peter Pocklington. Really?
I know. Yeah, how about that? How about
I
that
can't believe
reference
it.
right there, huh?
He
Hey,
traded
by the way,
Gretzky.
Mickey Delaney, thanks for being on. Hi, Scott, Trent, Eric. This guy, Peter Pocklington. Really? Serious? That's unbelievable. You're definitely not a one-trick pony, Cassie. I'm telling you, that was good.
I
You know
mean,
what? The only thing I'm going to add to this, because Cassie's already done all, I got to start here with this kid wearing red tonight, is if Vlad said they were never close to negotiations, I'm leaning in at that. I quit. I don't want to go any more than that because Cassie went ahead. This is his segment to begin with. All Trent and I are doing literally what? Filling in the blanks. Right,
Yeah.
Trent? We can't
Yeah.
go up there and top this kid's act.
And
Can we?
Kathy, you're right. This is exactly what they have to do. They have to go out and save face to their season ticket holders. I mean,
do.
they have to. They have to still put on a product and compete. And man, it is a dog market. And you know, if I'm Shapiro, I'm probably jonesing for a move to the Central or something, because being in the East and being with Boston and New York and Baltimore, I mean, it's a rough road to hoe as it is. And now you talk about that money conversion, and I don't know, man. It's a wonder if the Blue Jays can ever compete again as a playoff team.
Well,
Yeah, why you? So excuse me, Eric. 1 second. Why do you think the Detroit Tigers were initially in that division and they lobbied with Mike Ilitch to get out of it and ended up going to the Central Division? That's exactly. They knew that at that time they weren't going to go out there and spend that kind of
Great
money.
move. Great
You
move.
know
in
what?
Detroit.
It was unbelievable, wasn't it, Trent? I think the
Yes.
Tigers got out of it. They gave up traditional rivals to make this, and then they end up in the Midwest, and we all know the end results there. All right, Eric, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I had to get that thought since it was fresh in my head.
Well, the Tigers, looking back at it, I mean, yeah, it makes sense for the Blue Jays to be in the Central because you got that natural rivalry with the Tigers right there.
Right.
And that, but the thing was, though, the Tigers left the East before I think the Tigers left the East before the Blue Jays arrived. So ultimately, the league needed another team in the AL East. So essentially, Mike Ilitch essentially screwed the Blue Jays and put them in the AL East with the likes of Boston and New York, and also when Baltimore was very competitive at that point in time. So ultimately,
and you know, Tampa's shown themselves every few years too that they can play ball down in Florida, and
that was later.
Man, that's a tough road to hoe in the East, man.
But with all due respect to the Tampa Bay Rays, these guys are geniuses. With the way they can build on no funds, and isn't getting any easier now with them playing at George Steinbrenner Field. No, but you know what? I got to give the Rays credit. They've had two unbelievable managers, Joe Madden, and then you've also had Kevin Cash.
Yeah.
To me, the Rays are the model small market organization out there. They really are. It is. They spend their money wisely. I mean, the Brewers have done okay, but they're you can't even put the Brewers in the same sentence as the Tampa Bay Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays are just genius. You know, the Brewers have a better stadium, and I think ultimately, I don't want to get off topic too much, but I think ultimately the Tampa Bay Rays are going to go to Tampa. I just get a real feeling since that deal in St. Petersburg isn't closed, they're going to end up in Tampa. We'll get into this another time, but that's what my feeling is. Tampa Bay Rays are a model organization. I think. I can't say.
Well,
or whoever.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, the point is they had themselves a franchise player they could build around. The Toronto Blue Jays could have done something that the Montreal Expos failed to do, which was to keep a Guerrero in Canada. But now, just like obviously Montreal and Toronto are just two different circumstances because Montreal was owned by a bunch of cheap people at the time. You know, not necessarily Charles Bordeaux, but his investors were like so cheap that Charles Bordeaux even wrote a book about it. And when Jeffrey Lurie bought the team, he had the same problems there as well. But here's the thing. They had a franchise player, which, hell, he wanted to stay. He was very publicly adamant about staying. He was okay, even when he went to, they even took him to arbitration, and he was still willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's kind of like he was kind of like that one family member who keeps on giving that other family member the benefit of the doubt, despite them constantly screwing up every single time. But here's the thing. the Blue Jays monumentally screwed this up. They should have done it a couple years ago when I think $250-300 million would have done it. I'd probably say around the time of, Aaron Judge's free agency, I think would have been the perfect time to do it. But here's the thing. They kept on lowballing him, and they clearly prioritized failed free agent pursuits and Juan Soto, who I never thought they had a shot at anyway, and also Shohei Ohtani, which I hope everybody enjoyed their little jet party when that was going on. But you had a franchise player right in your arms. Now your franchise is going to has been trending downhill, even with Vlad Guerrero Jr. And I think dark days are ahead. And it would not shock me if people in Toronto go ahead and take Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro and burn effigies right near Rogers Center.
You know what? I'm not topping that. I don't know about you, Trent. This guy, I can't top this, and I've been in this business longer than a long time. I can't top that. What about you, Trent?
They did it in Edmonton with Peter Pocklington after he sold Wayne Gretzky to the LA Kings, and the LA Kings went on to popularize hockey in California. And meanwhile, it took the Oilers a little while to kind of get back at it after trading Gretzky. So, but I'd say letting Guerrero Jr. go, and he's going to leave. I mean, Toronto could say they're going to try and bring him back, but I don't think they will. And they can try and say all they want, but to be truthful, this is up there with Wayne. This is probably up there with Wayne Gretzky leaving for being traded to the LA Kings.
Well, the reality of the situation is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. could have owned Canada, and Toronto didn't make it happen. Hello, Ralph. Glad to have you in here. All right, let's move on to the next topic. I know Eric could go on all show, but we still have a couple of other topics. But I knew we had Trent. We had to let him get it out of his system early.
That's right. Got to get it out.
Yeah, we had to let. This is the one thing about this show here. Eric, Trent and I do what we got to do, but Eric is the star of this show. We just go out there and have fun with him, right, Trent?
That's right.
Yeah, I think he is. I don't even care. Hello, 80. How you doing, my friend? Glad to have you on, buddy. All right, so Candy will keep everything going in the chat room. And one more topic. We go to a station break after that. I'd have some activity in the chat room. The Angels will lose money this year. Artie Moreno said he's owned the franchise since 2003, told the Orange County Register that the franchise will probably lose $50 to $60 million revenue shortfalls from TV sponsorships and ticket sales. You know what? When you have a hot one like Eric, who loves to go out there and pick on Artie Moreno, you can do it. But before you do that, Eric, Candy, please get Andy Prather's latest one up. Domingos is pissing me off as a Yankee fan. Okay. All right, Eric. You heard what I said? It's yours.
Artie Moreno. Well, that's what happens when you decide to overpay a bunch of free agents that ultimately flop in your face, kind of like what he did with Josh when he decided to have a free agent palooza that year when he brought in Josh Hamilton just for him to drink his way out of baseball. But, and then also he decides to bring in who's now become Anthony injury prone Rendon. That's what happens when these things fail. And when your team has stunk for as long as Artie Moreno's has, for God knows how long, it hasn't been relevant since 2014 and only saw Mike Trout in the playoffs once and never got the opportunity to get Shohei Ohtani there, where it took him to essentially sell out and go to the Los Angeles Dodgers. That's what happens that's what happens. You lose money. And when your team is stunk for as long as Artie Moreno's has, you lose money. And it would not shock. Artie Moreno already tried selling the team once, which I bet you he's probably thinking about doing it again. He's probably wakes up at night and says, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. He's probably yelling at his bathroom mirror when he rises for work each morning. But he's losing money. I mean, those ticket sales are only going to be dwindling. Matter of fact, when the Yankees go to town, we call the Angel Stadium Yankee Stadium West.
All right, Trent, hold on. We got to get this one up for Eddie. All right, Kenny, no one can see. All right, here's another name. Okay, hang on one second, Trent. All right, let's go to the first one. At least Moreno is spending money even was a bad investment. True. No one could see Albert Pujols turning into such a busted Angels. All right, take over there.
Because he got hurt. That's why he was.
Well, it doesn't matter. All right, Trent, go ahead.
There's also, Pujols' best years were behind him. I mean, you know, he was an aged player when he went, and his best years were in the Cardinals, and it was a risk taking a guy in that age, and you hope he's fine. But man, anyone who ever saw that guy in the minor leagues realized like that guy looked much more mature than everybody else back then. You know, a great player for sure. But I love the fact that Artie's been willing to spend money, you know, as opposed to a bunch of other organizations that won't. Now, the choices have been suspect, right? I mean, I don't know what kind of due diligence they're doing on this. I don't know if it's just bad bets. I don't know if this is just you know, they took the gamble, lost each and every time. Having the best player in baseball for a couple of years there, and Mike Trout when he's healthy, is worth the price of admission. If he wants to sell it, I don't see how advertising he's going to lose $50 to $60 million is getting everybody all hot and heavy about going out and buying an Angel team. It's losing a crap ton of money, and then he's calling foul on TV sponsorship and ticket sales. Listen, a lot of that's done internally. You know, you got to look at your own team to go, what have you negotiated for a TV contract? You're in the Los Angeles market, which is the second biggest market in media, right, in the country. And sponsorship and sales are by your team. You sell sponsorship and sales. And so Southern California people have options. And this is the whole challenge I have with these teams who think, hey, you know, maybe we can finish 500 and just sell the place out. You cannot. You have to have a winner. Winners sell. Everybody wants to buy a winner. Everybody wants to go to a winner. This is where they're at. And when you're a team that hasn't finished above 500 for a decade, what are you going to do to compete? No one sits there. There's so many options in Southern California of things to do. The Angels are out. And Shohei Ohtani, in his first year out, goes in and signs a record deal and wins a world championship. And he didn't pitch one inning. I mean, like, wait till next year when this guy, you know, the dual threat and wins another title. Like, listen, man, it's not good for the rivalry in town. It's very sideways, similar to the years that the Cubs are winning World Series and, you know, White Sox are losing 100 games. So this is getting a sideways town, and there's a varsity team and a junior varsity team right now.
All right, the only thing I'll say is this. There's one guy I really feel bad for is Ron Washington taking that job with all this stuff going on. He's a really good manager. He really is. I hope Ron gets it fixed. And, of course, you want something to do in Disney. In Anaheim, of course, you have Disneyland. So there you go, Mickey Mouse. Donald Duck. Go ahead, Aaron. You close out topic.
I'll tell you what. This is the same town that was okay for the longest time without professional football. You know, and people still found stuff to do. You know, it's, you know, I like to think of it as I like to think of Los Angeles as a city with 1.5 baseball teams. You know, really, LA, there's plenty of things to do. You can eat, you can drink, you can go out, you can go clubbing, you can have fun. And, you know, there's the beach. But I'll tell you what, though, whether the Angels are losing or not, people are still going to be moving along quite nicely. Besides, the Dodgers are uptown where they seemingly have turned the lights very bright, and they are also just coming off a World Series title. But I'm telling you, LA is a city with 1.5 baseball teams, and we all know which baseball team is the one part of that equation.
All right, you know what? Station break time. Candy Ebling, take care of it, please. Thank you.
You are listening to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you see that red subscribe button, hit it, like us, share us with all your friends and family. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Monday nights we talk baseball. Tuesday nights we talk football. Wednesday and Thursday nights, Sports Exchange and Fire Up. You just never know what you're going to get, so tune in to find out. The South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is also a link to our merchandise store, a plethora of great content, including other writings from our host, Scott. There's some pictures on there too. And if you want to be a guest, email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And if you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. Back to you, Scott.
All right, chat room real quickly. Hi, Darcy. How are you? Coming from Mickey Delaney. Great stuff, Darcy. Bringing some people in here. Don't worry, before long you will be. And let's go to Eddie Prater. Washington was a great fit for the Rangers. So I'll put it out there real quick. Who was the first? And hi, Cindy, Candy. Okay, either way. I have a cousin named Cindy who had a birthday today, and I have a wife named Candy who's the brainstorm behind all of this stuff. Great stuff, Mickey. Glad to have you out there on Facebook. And this show is actually being on Facebook, Twitter /X, our YouTube channel, LinkedIn, and so forth. So, with that said, I'm gonna put it out there. Did you know that Ted Williams was the first manager of the Texas Rangers? You guys remember that?
An awful one.
Yeah, Ted Williams.
I knew that he was awful, but
well, you know everything. I don't want to hear anything.
He was awful.
Yeah, come on.
Well, okay, wait a minute. Little great Texas Rangers. He became the first manager of an expansion team that was basically a AA, AAA, conglomerate.
Only lasted a year.
Yeah,
he was just there to put the butts in the seats. It wasn't until Billy Martin came
What's
here.
The difference? He was there. Oh, I don't care what he did. I'm just saying, Ted Williams, people out there that are baseball purists, they're like, he did manage the Texas Rangers, no matter how long he was there. We all know Billy Martin didn't last long, but at least Billy was there and tried to give him a little excitement. Give Billy
He did. He got him relevant. Although I think if the Rangers would have put Joe DiMaggio there, I think they would have had a winning team.
I guess we'll never know. But it's good to throw out there as well. Joe DiMaggio on the Texas Rangers.
Coach the A's with a young Reggie.
All right, what a great segue, though, Mr. Katzy. I like the way he calls you. The Athletics have agreed to a 3-year contract extension with manager Mark Kotsay that runs for 26-28 with a club option for 2029. Let's face the reality, okay? Kotsay has a tough job. Started in Oakland, going to Sacramento, ultimately gets to Vegas. All right, you know what, Trent? I'm going to go ahead with you on this one. What are your thoughts about the extension being granted for Mr. Kotsay?
Well, thank you, Motor City Madmouth. It's nice that I can supersede Katsy on Kotsay.
Yeah, but we had some controversy here. We had to put him on for these first two. I'm sorry, Mark. I'm sorry, Trent. I didn't mean to offend you, but
no. I love it. I love it.
Don't talk to the guy.
And I'm looking forward to Katsy's view on Kotsay. So sounds like a Japanese show. So I think this is nice loyalty to Mark Kotsay. He was a nice player, had some time in the A's uniform. Everyone the next 2 years is going to be long. His 3-year extension, quote unquote, assures him that he's either going to get paid or he's going to be the manager in Las Vegas in that first year if they get there by year 3. And also with a club option so they can see what he can do. Man, I mean, this is pushing a rock uphill, boys. I mean, and I don't know how big this boulder is, but it's not small. And the thing for anyone doing that is fatigue sets in. Be careful. Don't get run over by the boulder when it goes free. It's a tough gig, and I've seen many people squashed by it trying to get up the hill. So, I my hat's off to Mark taking on a very tough job. But I think for Mark Kotsay, it's all upside. Like everyone has very little expectation. You're going to go through and be a very challenging time. This guy can produce any kind of positive benefit and a winning record. He's going to be in, a hot ticket for another club. If they're like, this guy can do that, they're going through all this adversity, they're going to see him as a potential for a much bigger club in a bigger market. So I'm trying to think the downside for manager Mark Kotsay.
All right, you know what, Eric? You have the last word on this, so I'm going to follow Trent in this situation. This was an absolute no-brainer, really was. This guy, to me, it did a pretty admirable job with the Oakland Athletics, and to be able to have any kind of success and keep them competitive in that lame duck season in Oakland. It was just too bad it didn't work out there. But now you're in Sacramento. It doesn't matter how big the ballpark is in Sacramento. You're going to outdraw what you did there. Be a lot more positive energy. So I think the Athletics, because we have to get used to it. What's it going to take for all of us to get used to the Oakland Athletics now to the Athletics? That's going to be the challenge for everybody on this panel and everybody that goes forward to do this. So I think the Athletics made a good move. They're spending a little bit of money this offseason. Now, I don't know whether or not there'll be a floor amount that you spend, but they're spending a little bit of money to make the product a little bit better. And by the time they get to Vegas and they have that beautiful ballpark, that I think we'll see to 33,000 or so. More power to Mark. That's all I have to say about it. We're going to go back to Mr. Katz.
Well, I mean, what else was going to happen? I mean, I don't think anybody would want to take that job working for an absolute probably the biggest failure of a billionaire I've ever seen in my life in John Fisher, who given all that's gone on in Oakland, I'm surprised he's still walking. I think Mark Kotsay got a lot out of that team last year. They improved win-loss wise. Still 93 losses, although they were in a fair amount of games, and there were some games last year I felt like they should have won, especially with Mason Miller has come a long way. I think I don't see why you want to make him a starter now. You want to keep him as a closer. That seems to be what he's doing. It's kind of hard to find closers, he's got Lawrence Butler has come along. I think he's going to be I think he can be a stud. Obviously, the journeyman, what's his name? Brett Rooker has out of nowhere become an all-star. So a lot of good things are happening there. I mean, there's a lot more a lot more of the progress of a ball club than just wins and losses. We've seen players are developing over there. Shea Langoliers is becoming a decent player over there. So I think the A's are at least heading in the right direction. Now, as far as the Vegas thing goes, for him to kind of keep the team focused despite all the dysfunction going on in the background that would make Kim Kardashian blush. I think that's a testament to him for keeping his team focused, because they did some good things last year. They did a lot better than most people predicted they would do. People were counting on another ugly 100-loss season, but they only lost like 93-ish games, and they were in a lot of ball games. So, no brainer there. Although, even if they let Kotsay go, I mean, I think at this point, if Kotsay is going to leave, Kotsay is going to leave on his own. But I can't imagine anyone else wanting that job. It's the equivalent of going from the ice cream shop to the junkyard.
Okay, that's fair enough. One of the new segments we're going to actually do going forward, and I've been finding this on Instagram. Sometimes when people ask me where I get some of my topics, and I go screenshot some on Instagram, and I get some really good ones. So we're going to add on this date, and going from time to time, because we're going to bring up some interesting names. And I think it's great to be able to talk about the past. We have a 29-year-old kid that acts like a 50 or 60-year-old anyway, that knows more than most people at any age. So one thing I think that's great about Katz, he's the most brash, intelligent kid I've ever seen in my 45 years in the industry. And Mr. Katz, you better take that as a compliment, or Grandpa's going to really let you have it, because I've never seen anybody
Just
like
remember,
you.
two article of the year awards in a row.
Well, there's a reason for that, and obviously we're seeing it here on the show. We have a guy that gets awards for articles. We have a guy with rings, and me, well, fill in the blank. I've been around the block a little bit. So we're going to incorporate one of those. I have two of the three. One of them we're going to go back to last week, though. We're going to reflect on the passing of Gary Carter, who passed away on February 16, 2012 in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. And obviously played with the Mets and the Angels. We talked about, the Mets and the Expos. Don't let me insult the guy for saying he was with the Angels. And I have nothing against the Angels. Hey, listen, they've treated me great over the years. Tim Mead's a very good friend of mine, and Adam who's running things. So the Angels have always been great to me, especially Tim Mead. God love the guy. He's always been there when I needed him. So, we'll go back to the passing on Gary Carter. What are your thoughts about that, Trent? I mean, this guy was lost. He died in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Once upon a time, the Montreal Expos trained in West Palm Beach as well, and now he ends up here. Go ahead.
Yeah, kind of cool that he made his way home, at the Palm Beach Gardens, coming up in Montreal, minor league complex. Wonder probably met his wife down in spring training and settled in. and that was a great place to spend an off-season home. Of course, in baseball, nothing better than to spend the off-season in Florida or Arizona, somewhere warm, and not spend that off-season somewhere up here in the north, where many do, because this is where we call home. But man, there's many places better to be than up here in November, December, and January. And so, Gary Carter, man, hard to believe 13 years, man, that Gary Carter's, been, I remember the day he passed, was a big Gary Carter fan as a young man, watching him play, played the game hard, the game right. One of the best catchers in the league in his era for sure. And, man, it's gone too soon, man. Gone too soon. 2012, pretty young guy at that point.
All right, let's go to the chat room. Mickey Delaney, just want you to know this. So left you a message on your Trent M. Clark. Very good. I'm sure he'll check it out. He's good about checking the message. Mickey Delaney, if you get a chance, and I love it when you come on Trent's Facebook page, because one of the things about Trent that's really awesome is he's able to stream to multiple platforms. But if you would kindly subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel as well, you'll have access to other shows. Trent's going to be helping us out on the Sports Exchange this Thursday. Going to get a little big piece of the hockey action as well, and we'll talk a little bit of baseball there. So, Mickey, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We would really appreciate it. South Florida Tribune. Got to go back to Prather. This guy's on a roll. When he gets on a roll, he's good. Love Gary Carter, even if he played for those redheaded stepchildren called the Mets. All right, well, hey, Eddie, keep those comments coming. Appreciate it. All right, go ahead, Mr. Katz.
Well, you could probably argue out of everybody on that '86 Mets team, he'd probably be considered a preacher, considering how many loose cannons were on that team that season. And it's well documented. It is well documented all that went on during that time. But Gary Carter, I mean, is a Hall of Famer for a reason. I think arguably the catcher of the 1980s. He played for the Expos, was very beloved there. He even learned French so he could talk to children, because English wasn't as common in Canada at the time as it is now. But obviously, he wasn't very young when he died. That's the shocking part. I mean, a lot of people went to that funeral, I heard a lot of people think, heck, they even let Lenny Dykstra out of jail at the time for him to go to the funeral. So
Really?
Yes, they did. They let Lenny out of jail.
Wow.
Which they let Lenny out of jail to go to the funeral. And so, that's how much he meant to a lot of people in baseball. I mean, no greater gentleman. The guy lived a very full life in just a short period of time. He even was a broadcaster after his career ended, and was very good at it too. And I think had he lived longer, I think he would have excelled even more at it. But obviously, the catcher in the 1980s, Hall of Famer, very deserving of it, and a big part of that '86 Mets team. And again, compared to every loose cannon in that locker room, he'd probably be considered a preacher.
Now, the only things I'll say about Gary Carter, if you've ever been to the Mets and you're a member of the media, they have a picture of him in the media lounge about Gary Carter, which is really great stuff. It shows you how valuable he was to that organization. And we've talked about the Montreal Expos. I'm just going to say this right now while I have an opportunity, because it blends in what we're talking about. I hope at some point or another, the Montreal Expos get a second chance and get another franchise. They need to get the stadium right. The way they lost it in 1994 was bad, or at least that was the beginning of the end. And Ernie Harwell, to me, and I've talked to my uncle Ernie Harwell. Yes, he's an uncle of mine of sorts. He's my mentor. Ernie Harwell is undoubtedly the best. That's what destroyed. I really, truly, for you Expos fans out there that are watching, I hope you get a stadium, and I hope you get the Expos back. And if you do get the Expos back, I hope that the Expos land in the same division as the Toronto Blue Jays. That way you have the Toronto-Montreal organization, even if it means you have to put them in the same league, whether it's National or American League. I don't really care. To me, it's just unbelievable. You have to do it. All right, let's go back to the chat room. I want to get that out there. We're going to continue to go to the chat room right now, because my superstar Yusuf Marshall, who did an unbelievable job in last week's edition of Inside the Pick, and this guy was unbelievable. He brought the energy. Looking forward to having him on more shows. But Yusuf Marshall said, Candy, immediately hearing the Expos makes me sad and mad. The wrong needs to be righted. No question about it, Yusuf. Just remember GMTA, my friend, Great minds think alike. I'll put it up there. You need to see it, and I'm going to make sure y'all do see it. Hearing the Expos makes me sad and mad. The wrong needs to be righted. No question about it. Okay, now let's go back to Prather. Well, I'll tell you one thing about him. His comments are loaded, and so is this Thurman Munson, Gary Carter, and Jorge Posada are my three favorite catchers in my lifetime. You know what? I'm going to leave this up there for a minute. This is what we call topic within the topic, Eric. What are your thoughts about Eddie Prather's choice of catchers?
I mean, it's hard to kind of pick because, baseball's seen a lot of great catchers over the years. I mean, during the 80s, you also had Steve Yeager, who was a great catcher in and of himself for the Dodgers, and, helped them have a lot of success during that time. Jorge Posada, love Jorge, love the core four Yankee, big part of a big part of their success during that time. But Thurman Munson, catcher of the, him and Pudge Rodriguez, catchers of the 70s, and they were, obviously a big part of those. They really made that Yankees and Red Sox rivalry during that time because both of them couldn't stand each other. And Thurman, he could do it all offensively and defensively, which I don't think you really see anymore from catchers, just because it's either you're one or the other. And I just don't think that they really developed all around players anymore. I mean, you see them. That's why you call them generational talents. But you don't really get an all-around player. And Thurman Munson was a great all-around player. Same with Gary Carter and Jorge Posada for sure. And is Gary Carter a Hall of Famer? Yes. Will Jorge Posada be in the Hall of Fame? I don't really think so. I just think
Really?
no, I don't think so. As much as I love Jorge, I think he was he was Hall of Very good. And also Thurman. Problem with Thurman though is, he didn't play long enough. Is like as much as I know in the hearts of a lot of Yankee fans, and I've been talked to about this before. I know in a lot of the hearts of Yankee fans that they want Thurman in the Hall of Fame. But problem is he didn't play long enough. Plus, by like the last year, like in '79, when around that season, he was starting to reach the back nine of his career. They were thinking about moving him to. There was talks about him moving to first base, and he had they done that, I don't think he would have gotten in the Hall of Fame anyway. And since he wasn't a catcher, he wouldn't have been a catcher the entire time. So I love the Yankees, but Thurman Munson didn't play long enough. That's just all there is to it.
Well, the only thing I'll say about Thurman Munson, I believe he was the first time captain in quite a while, if I remember correctly, with the Yankees.
Yes.
Right. So that's all I'm going to put out there. All right, I'm turning over to my buddy Trent. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's like when I kind of think about the lineup of the lineup of catchers, man. I mean, Johnny Bench sticks out, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and I think Gary Carter was kind of an heir apparent to a Johnny Bench, Thurman Munson type player. Also in that area was obviously Pudge in Boston, and you start going into the 80s, you got Scioscia. I mean, he won a world championship. You got some guys that are pretty tough guys back there, man. I mean, there's we've had a good run of catchers, but I think the one thing with Posada that you got to kind of consider is like he was at the helm for how many championships, man? I mean,
a lot of them.
Yeah,
I think he's got 4 rings. So
5.
Is it 5? Does he have 5?
He was on that 09 team, yes.
So I mean, when you look at a guy like that, man, that's who's our other quarterback out in these leagues that's got 5 or more? Like,
right.
You're running that catcher role day in, day out, dog eat dog world. I mean, it's a terrible deal on your body, and he's got to catch some big names, some big egos, and deal with that whole thing. Man, there's a lot of intangibles that Jorge Posada goes a long way for me. And the other thing I'd say with him is that I just love about the guy is really never a superstar level number, but never down, very, very consistent. Offensively, man, and defensively, probably one of the top guys in the game. So, the 5 rings didn't come by chance. You got to have that quarterback back there. And I think he's Hall of Fame material if I'm talking out loud. And I think he's also an heir apparent to these guys as the type of ball player that they were. I think he carried the torch. Guys like Munson, Bench, Carter. I think Posada goes right in that language.
All right, you know what? I got to go back to the chat room. That's Eddie Prather. Seriously, you're on a roll, my friend. Munson was the first catcher I saw on TV as a 4-year-old. All right, I have to throw a trivia question. Who was the only catcher on this panel, okay, that played ball when catcher as a little league? Me.
You?
I did. I loved it. I was awful in the outfield. You had to find a position to bury me. My dad tried to put me over at third base, and I nearly overthrew a guy, one of our tallest first basemen. But when he stuck me behind the plate, he found my son a position. And the guy that couldn't make it that way never got his job back and subsequently quit. And it was unbelievable. I tell you one thing about catcher, and I love bringing on catchers, man, is I know their language. I knew how to manipulate the umpires and get out of the way and get them to get hit if they didn't get my pitcher to go. I know the trick on that position. If that wasn't enough, I use hitters worse than me when I start talking to them. They say, by the way, he's going to pitch outside. And then I would take intentional mound visits. I did everything that they don't want you to do and just phase out there. So I love that position. I was awful everywhere, but I'm going to tell you, when I was a catcher, I was actually pretty good. And I was a skinny type. Let me tell you, I don't know. I was like a 50-pound catcher that my dad used to own a sporting goods store. And I'll tell you, I can't tell you how many cups he had to get me during the course of one season, because there was an awful lot with me getting hammered with every foul ball, upward, downwards, and so I wrote maybe a little TMI there. But that's a hell of a position. And I'm going to tell you one thing about it is I think Jorge Posada is the most underrated catcher on the planet, because he played with Derek Jeter and a bunch of superstars. But hopefully one of these days he does get in. All right, back to the chat room. We're going to keep it going. Bo Crouch, my man. Looking forward to wait, hold on one second. Yeah, hold on. Hope to have you on the Inside the Pitch. We've got some really good topics, Bo. Glad to have you on tonight. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, here's the problem, too, with Jorge Posada. He also played in an era where there was a lot of great catchers, too, because he had to kind of contend with Yadier Molina, who catcher of the 2000s, which to me is the greatest catcher I've ever seen. And he also had to contend with that. He also was contending with Mike Piazza also played during his time as well, which Mike Piazza is, a Hall of Famer and very deserving of it. So he was also competing with that also. And so and he also was playing in the same era as Ivan Rodriguez. So that's why he gets overlooked, just because you had 3 to 4 catchers who were Hall of Famers who got in, that Jorge Posada unfortunately was just overshadowed because of that. He also played in New York, where that was Derek Jeter's team, and hey, love it or hate it, that's just the way it was. And so between dealing with 3 and 4 catchers who were arguably the best in the league, at that point in time, it's just hard to get the recognition. I think had he played in another era, I think he might have gotten it. And he also had to contend with Joe Mauer later on too, who Joe Mauer is probably the catcher that was probably the most recent catcher that could not only do it defensively, but he could sustain offense consistently when he was healthy. But between dealing with 5 Hall of Fame catchers right there, it's just hard. It was just hard on him. It's just the era he played in. I think had he played in an era of maybe now, he perhaps might have had a chance with the numbers that he put up and his but it was just, he played with Ivan Rodriguez, Mike Piazza, Yadier Molina, Joe Mauer. It was just a tough deal for him. It was just the era he played in. And I think that's why
Alomar Jr., Santiago. Yep. There's a lot of guys out there, but here's what I would argue, Catsy.
Yep.
5 rings, man. I mean, and you could say, oh, well, the Yankees were loaded. Here's my question to you, Catsy. Tell me this. If Jorge Posada goes and wins 2 championships as the catcher of the Baltimore Orioles because of his contribution as a leader, field general, and is creating offensive value on a team that doesn't have 9 other superstars, would then he get the respect?
I still don't think he'd get. Given that Baltimore is a small and mid market, depending on how you look at it. I still don't think he would have. I think that it would have just greatly overshadowed. I think he would have been even more overshadowed from being over there, because had he gone over there, he would have had to contend with Cal Ripken Jr. as well over there. So really, the guys that'll lose just based on the era he played in. and I'm going to respond to Eddie. Eddie, I'm a Yankee fan, and no, he's not better than Yadier Molina. Yadier Molina is probably the best defensive catcher of the 2000s, period. But I just, I think in Baltimore though, he would have had a tougher deal over there because I think Eddie Murray was over there as well, and so like it would have been a tougher deal. It's just the era he played in. That's just the issue. I think had he played another era like maybe now or maybe like now, he would have gotten in, or possibly had a longer look than just 1 year on the ballot. But you had 4 to 5 Hall of Famers who were in that era. Like, that's just a tough deal for him. Plus even so, there's no doubt he was a big part of those Yankee teams, and he was obviously very deserving of a monument in Monument Park. But Hall of Fame, he's probably like Hall of Very Good, just based on the stat line that was put up during that era. Because he had 5 Hall of Fame catchers to compete with. That's just an uphill battle, even if you do play in New York. I think even if you moved him to the Kansas City Royals, it's still same deal. He probably would have gone unnoticed.
All right, let me go back to the chat room real quick, Eric, if I may, please. Posada was a catcher version of Tino Martinez, 2 very good overall catchers. I'm just going to go to the chat right now and let you guys continue on because I have another Yankee topic that, thanks to Eric, I was able to put on. Mickey just clicked self-work. Thank you very much, Mickey. I really appreciate you very much and appreciate your presence, and the fact that you're a Trent means you're definitely good people, and thank you so much. All right, let's keep going with Eddie Prather. I want to keep these chat comments going. I want to make sure I don't go out there and miss anybody because they all deserve to be shown. All right, let's continue the roll. I don't think the career catcher should matter as long when it comes to summertime. You know what? That's a pretty good point. It really does. Listen, Eric, we don't have to always agree with these people, but if they're entitled to their opinion, and I respect that, you never know. Let's face the reality. Roberto Clemente got in the Hall of Fame faster because they waived that a little bit ahead of time. There you go. And Trent's wearing
got the tribute 21. Going tonight, boys. Yeah. Got the tribute going.
Yeah, we sure do. Roberto Clemente's number 21, I think, should be retired across Major League Baseball. Maybe one of these days that'll be a topic we get to. So, you know what, Eddie, I get your point, and I put it up there. Whether we agree or disagree, I don't care. I just like intelligent conversation in the chat room because that shows you the kind of audience that we bring on, people that really love the sport, and that's what this show's all about in the first place. Okay, and let's continue on with that.
Motor City, I like that. I like that concept, Motor City. We go 21 retired, 42. The next number we got to retire would be 63 because it's all, factors of 21. So we could just keep going,
Don't start talking math with me. You know better than I'm awful at it. Seriously, really? My father-in-law, Fred Ebling, would fail me in his math class. Luckily, I got his daughter. Okay, all right, Cyber
worked out.
But Roberto Clemente, you got to retire number 21 no matter what. Okay, what's going on? Cyberuski, thanks for being on board, my friend. All right, Bo Kraut, definitely matter when you're close. Okay, that's okay. No problem. I love it. Bring them all in here. Okay, I want them all. I'm not missing any of Jimmy. All right. Okay, who else we have on here? Mickey Lee. Hi, Rob Crouch. All right. Stop, man. These guys are awesome. When I go to the chat room, it preserves my voice for about a minute or two anyways. Okay. And now the comment that was just alluded to, these guys are sharp in the chat room. Is better than Javier Molina. All right, well, that's subject to you guys to debate.
Yeah, you know what? He might be better than the 2 older Molinas. Jose, definitely probably better than Jose.
Jose and Benji, probably, but not Yachty.
Not Yachty.
Maybe better offensively than Yachty, but not defensively. No,
not a chance.
And then second best catcher behind Ivan. No, there are quite a few catchers I would rank ahead of. There was quite a few catchers I would rank ahead of Posada during the 90s, and Piazza was one of them. Yes, he was mad defensively, but Piazza had cracked a lot of home runs during that span. And plus, it also is his home run during the week after 9/11.
All right, let's go back here. All right, so Eddie says Posada was the second best catcher of the 90s behind Ivan. All right, well, that's okay. All right, that's okay. But I want these people to say what they got to say. Piazza was a great hitter, but man, on defense, I think he's thinking that's
pizza guy. Who's Pizza, Eddie?
All right, yeah, there you go. Hitting catcher. Yeah, it's hard to find those these days. NFL gets it right, putting players in the Hall of Fame that had shorter careers. There's no question about that.
You're getting rocked because you get rocked every other play. So you're your lifespan is going to be a lot shorter in that sport.
No question about it. Sorry, I call you Rob Bowcroft. No problem. It's okay. You're all friends on here. It's all good. Pizza was a lousy defensive catcher. You eat Piazza or pizza? Oh, he's Italian, so it doesn't
He
matter.
corrected course on the next one.
Piazza, there you go. And of course, for those of you who are interested, Tommy Lasorda used to be called Tommy Lasagna. I'm sure.
That's right. That's right.
So I will continue. Let's stay with the Yankees thing a little bit, though. I mean, now that Eric wants to, the Yankees guy, we're going to stay with the Yankees theme a little. Giancarlo Stanton is unsure if he will be ready for the opening day, dealing with pain in both elbows. Eric, are you surprised?
Not really, because injuries are unfortunately a part. Unfortunately, I'm not going to say a part of his game. I think Stanton's body's just failing him at this point. It's been failing him for a number of years. I can't remember the last time he truly had a healthy season. It's got to the point where the Yankees have had to take him out of the outfield because they're trying to preserve his health. But it's unfortunate because I like Stanton. I think he gets a lot more crap than he deserves for when he goes on a cold streak, considering the guy is like the bat speed's still there, and that will buy you life in baseball. But man, his body's just falling apart, man. It's bad. I mean, I think the Yankees are just trying to see that contract through enough to where they can try and dump him somewhere, kind of like what the Twins did with Josh Donaldson a couple years back after they brought him up, and then he ended up declining badly after that. But it's unfortunate though. It's just unfortunately he is very, unfortunately his body is just falling apart. Heck, he can't even run. That's how bad it's become.
Yeah,
That's true.
This is alarming for me because, first of all, you're coming off 3.5 months off. There should be, to me, no reason why a guy is not 95%. Like, even nowadays with knee surgeries, we're doing knee surgeries and guys are coming back in 8 weeks. So, like, there's a lot of things out there. I mean, if you had Tommy John, that'd be one thing. But, as a DH, I don't understand the pain in the elbows. This is also a guy who I think was featured in a Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. Like, this guy was a mesomorph, man. This guy is an underwear guy because Giancarlo looked a male model in his underwear. And so this guy's been built like a brick poop house forever. And it's alarming that when you see guys that have gone through this, and it's not uncommon, that joint issues are real. I mean, and the reality of the deal is that, man, the injury thing makes everybody really average really fast. And you just hate to see a guy's career. It will fade very quickly if he can't get this thing right. And, and while I agree with Kathy, the maintaining of his bat speed's been impressive over his career, but I always attributed that to his work ethic. I mean, he's always been in shape. He's always eaten well. He takes care of himself. But man, that this is the kind of injury that will affect that. And it's just as much mental as it is physical, because the moment you know that you're not the same guy you were a year or two ago, you play a different way, you start cheating in on fastballs, you do a lot of little different things mentally that just really affects the game physically. And we've seen it 100 times in this league with guys. I mean, we all remember the quick demise of what was our second baseman over in Cleveland forever.
Sandy Allen, wasn't it? Allen, one of the Almars, wasn't it?
No, the second baseman a long time was went to the Mets.
Year, 97.
Yeah, 90, early 90.
Tony Burnett. Oh, I know who you're talking about. He was a Yankee too he was a Yankee too, like around during the Showalter years.
Yeah, Carlos Baerga.
Wow,
no, I thought it was Tony Fernandez.
Tony Fernandez is always a shortstop. He played second base in the World Series because
Robinson Cano.
Because Biff Roberts called in sick on Game 7.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other topic we should take on someday, by the way.
Baerga was promising. It just, the injuries just ate him alive.
Oh, I mean, Baerga is like his fall from grace was so fast. I mean, like it's amazing how fast that went down on a career that from 90 to 95 was an absolute wrecking crew. And in one season, in
Oh my God.
96, that thing went down in a hurry.
All right,
And,
back to the
Rebounded
chat
down
room.
7.
Sorry to interrupt you guys. I want to stay consistent with the chat. Eddie Prather, sad to see that Stanton can't stay healthy, even being a DH. I'm going to tell you one thing, Eddie, though. When I've seen him hit some bombs over at Lone Depot Park before when Marlins Park it was unbelievable to watch. Let's continue on the Eddie Prather theme because this guy is once again on a roll. Great stuff. There's a thing called Jimmy Too Much Muscle Belt. No, I'm not debating that one. I think he put in a guess for Robinson Cano, right? So we'll just.
He was an idiot.
Well, okay, but we'll put him on there. Okay. And Cano died off quickly also. Yeah, he really did.
The first couple years of that Mariners contract, he went.
Yeah, didn't he? Yeah, so let's keep it going. And
The
if you
Yankees
guys
ended
want to
up being
close out,
right for all the wrong reasons.
so you guys can close out the topic. I just want to go out there and continue to make sure that the chat room I stay consistent with that. So, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I just love watching Stanton in home runs. And obviously, Derek Jeter found the right team to unload that contract to the Yankees. So he's not stupid.
They ate some of that. They ate some of that deal. They didn't just dump the entire contract on him.
Yeah.
They also got some. They also got some lottery tickets in return, which God knows if they did anything at this point.
Right. No, I agree. All right, we got one more topic to roll tonight. We're having a great show. I love all the participation in the chat room. Eddie Prather's been on a roll. Let's go back and talk about some of the people in the chat room that have really done a nice job contributing tonight before we hit to our final topic. Mickey Delaney, can't say enough about you being on tonight. Bo Crouch, thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Let's keep it rolling. Yusuf Marshall, my friend there. I'll tell you, this guy was awesome last week on Inside the Pigskin. Looking forward to having him on other shows as well. I mean, you talk about the energy that Yusuf Marshall brings. Seriously, this guy's awesome. And, of course, Darcy Mabel started it off. Final topic of the night. I was surprised when I saw this. But I'm going to talk about it anyways. On this date, on February 24th, 1986, the Atlanta Braves signed USC star pitcher Tom Seaver. Get this, okay?
Yeah.
Tom Seaver. But Commissioner William Eckert cancels the contract due to rules that govern the signing of college players. He was ineligible by USC, became available to any team willing to match the original contract in a lottery. Mets won it, which is also included bids by the Cleveland Indians and the Philadelphia Phillies. I want to start with you on this one, Trent. What are your thoughts about Tom Seaver? If you would have ended up with the Phillies or the Indians, we all know what happened when he got to the Miracle Mets.
Yeah. I mean, I'd never heard that story before. I did not realize that. I mean, obviously a little bit before my time as a guy born in 1969. So that was he sounded like another college kid coming out as a can't miss kid, and proved that out pretty well very quickly with the Mets. Sadly, I'd love to understand the dynamics that's saying, they can't sign this kid. I assume that is part of the rule now that still stands today, where Division I ball players are not eligible for the draft until after 3 years of play, which is why our junior colleges and fill up with a lot of great talent, because that Division I baseball is now a big commitment for any athlete who sees themselves in a pro career, because the sports are all doing it differently. We see the hockey players are drafted and still playing under amateur status at the collegiate level. Famously Boston U and North Dakota State and a number of teams up in Minnesota who've had great NHL stars and sat with a year or two as freshmen, sophomores in their programs. So it's a very unique deal that the rules are subjective to each sport. So my assumption is the Seaver's probably got a role in that established that 3-year rule.
Go ahead, Eric.
I mean, yeah, I knew the story. I mean, the Mets essentially got him in a coin flip, which with the second team escapes me, but the Mets got him in a coin flip, and of course he went on to obviously have a Hall of Fame career, which I want to note just as a Yankee fan of the Mets. The Mets let him get away not once but twice in typical Mets fashion. But yeah, I mean, I knew the story. I knew that he was, that they told the Braves no, and essentially they and so that then he was also at the time when with the way the NCAA was, which I'm sure in that, which I'm not really sure how it is now. It's changed so much over the years. Even now, it's still changing. That that he got ineligible there, which ultimately he's caught in a rock and a hard place there, and that's how it. But yeah, I knew the story there. I knew that Mets got him in a coin flip, and it kind of reminds me of what happened with JD Drew with the garbage that Scott Boras pulled in the '90s, where they had him go play independent ball for a little while because he couldn't agree to a contract, and so Scott Boras made him unavailable to be drafted. Had him go play indie ball for a year, to the point where he was supposed to go to the Phillies, and then the Phillies, when he came back, I forget who he was with at the time, but Phillies fans were pelting him with batteries. But yeah, I mean, the draft has always been kind of it's always a screwy deal. I mean, it always has been, because teams will find ways to cheat. That's just the way it is, especially with international prospect, which we all know what they really do down there. It's a really ugly side of baseball that baseball doesn't really like talking about.
All right, I want to bring Candy Ebling on the show. This is really interesting, and since we're talking baseball, Candy, can you come out for just a moment? I want you to drum up that college baseball score that you came up with the University of Florida. Since we're talking college baseball, she's going to bring this score out. I don't really talk about it, but since you guys let the cat out of the bag with the Tom Seaver thing, we're going to do it anyway. So we talk about baseball at all levels. I've covered college baseball before with the Miami Hurricanes, as well as FAU Owls. It's pretty good stuff. So
I'm looking it up.
Right,
I believe the score was 25-17, and it was the Gators, I believe. But I'm double checking.
42 runs in a game. Of course, we all know they use aluminum bats. And you're right, though, Trent. And you're right, Trent. You had that 2-year commitment to play ball. But I'll tell you one thing. I got someone to ask you while she's looking this stat up, because this is interesting. Trent, I'm going to lead off with you here, my friend. Okay? This is, do you think the college players' short road to the major leagues a little bit shorter because of the amount of coaching that they're getting a little bit earlier?
I've never seen that actually work out. Like, I can recall like all the, teams of the SEC, Skip Bertman down at LSU. I can't forget the time that Skip Bertman said his team is probably better than a AA team, which is laughable. And I mean, there's just a lot of talent developed. The reality of the deal is that the NCAA is going to restrict a college player to 20 hours a week. We know as pro ball players down in Dominican, they are going into the Dominican leagues and signed at 16 years old. So at 16 years old, they start spending 8 hours a day, at least 6 hours, at least 6 days a week, minimum time, and sometimes longer. So we can average that out very quickly to 48 plus hours a week. We know the baseball season, you're going to get even more than that. There's very few days off, usually about 1.5 every month. So when you look at the time on the field for these young players who get drafted at a very young age compared to a college kid, the college player is way behind. And quite frankly, the biggest complaint I hear at the amateur level is that the kids are very sound physically and mechanically. The baseball IQ is dropping like,
oh my God, yeah.
Like man, it's dropping like the sun in a freaking eclipse, man. I mean, it's just going dark. And I mean, I'm talking to kids about hitting, and they're looking through me like I'm a ghost, man. They're not thinking what we were thinking at that age at all about setting up and all this stuff. And you hear the great stories of a pitcher like Greg Maddux, how he sets guys up in the middle of the season, waiting for the playoffs, and there's great stories about him. And man, he's playing a long game. Greg Maddux is always playing chess. So if you're a hitter and they're trying to play checkers, man, you have no chance against a guy like that. And I'm talking to kids that are playing tiddlywinks, man. They haven't graduated up to checkers, and they're in their 20s. I think that baseball IQ dropping off is going to be a big factor for a player that's already behind on reps, because confidence is prep and reps, right? So it's all prepare. So there's all this preparation, which is good. And they're getting better preparation physically now because the coaching has been brought down to their level at an earlier age. So that's good from that side. But this loss of baseball IQ is terrifying. And I think the reps that a pro ball player gets compared to a college kid, there's no condiment in the world that's going to allow them to catch up.
So
Jared, let me tell you this real quick. I love it when you associate chess because I mentioned that a lot in my book, Lessons from the Microphone. Anytime you
Yes.
take chess and whether you apply it to life or baseball, whatever, especially in mental sport like it is, Trent, bingo, brother. Okay, Candy, go ahead. And
So
by the
I
way,
have
before
to- I
I
have-
go to that, I want to go to Eddie Prather. Okay, sorry, Can. Okay, I hate metal bats in baseball. So if you hate metal bats in baseball, get off my friend Sammy Sosa's bat about a cork bat. Okay, and once upon a time, Sammy and I were teammates of the Gastonia Rangers back in '87. All right, go ahead, Cam.
So I do apologize because I got the wrong Florida college.
Oh, sorry, it doesn't matter.
Florida Atlantic Baseball blitzed UConn early on Saturday and held off a late comeback attempt to win 25-17. They remained 6-0. After 3 innings, they were up 17-1 heading into the 5th inning.
Wow.
So UConn did come
Nobody
back
wanted to pitch.
again. 25-17 was the final score.
And a little piece of
Baseball.
information. Yeah, a little information about Florida Atlantic. One of my best friends in baseball, his name is Kevin Cooney. He talked about a guy who ended up being a great coach over at Florida Atlantic. Kevin Cooney, and of course, John McCormack is in charge now. But, again, we're talking about a lot of runs scored, so more power to you. So, yeah, and you know what, Eddie, it's a safety issue with me in the middle. But no, I couldn't agree with you anymore, Eddie.
It would be
It is
awful.
a safety issue. Yeah. Hey, listen, the wood bats all the way. Eddie, great minds think alike. Please remember that because that's what you just said here, and I'll put it up there, is what we call bingo, B-I-N-G-O, great minds think alike. No big deal. I'm with you all the way. I bet everybody on this panel probably agrees with you as well. Thanks for putting it out there. All right, Eric, go ahead. Anything else you want to add before we close out the broadcast?
Well, yeah, as far as the baseball IQ is dropping, yeah, it's bad now. Like now they're just having guys say, here, go through 95 to 100 miles an hour, and if you can hit more. So you got kids at age 12 to 14, sometimes younger, getting Tommy John surgery at a very young age, and they don't know how to run bases anymore at the big league level. It's ugly. It is bad. It is like, I mean, I get when you get caught in a rundown, or or this guy makes a nice play at the wall and you get caught, which it happens. Sometimes you'll have an Andy Chavez moment where he makes a nice play at the wall and you're caught on what to do. You have no idea what to do because you don't know what just happened, which it happens. But God, some of the base running mistakes are just terrible. Like, oh man, it's just bad. And then also pitchers aren't really pitching anymore. Now they're just throwing. It's become too much of a power game now, where instead of where strikeouts are rising and not enough emphasis is placed on getting on base. They're just focusing on 3 outcome, which is strikeouts and home runs and runs scored. That's about it. But other than that, they're not fundamentally sound.
Well, go back to Eddie.
They're not going to be fundamentally sound.
Eddie Prather says the fundamentals are not taught anymore. I mean, the guys,
they're not valued anymore, right?
Right, exactly.
And now you're teaching.
To Kathy's point, it's the same thing on the pitching side. Wins and losses, nobody cares. Light the gun up at 101, you're all of a sudden got something we can work with, and everyone thinks at the pro level, like, oh, I'm going to teach you to pitch. Like, listen, some of these guys, you're not going to teach how to pitch. You're going to just let them go and let them throw. I mean, don't quote me on this, but man, I'll just give you an example of what college baseball was for me. And in a conference playing in the Midwest, we were an absolute wrecking crew. I think averaging above 8 runs per game. And to give you a little glimpse of our defensive stalwart and pitching, we were well under 500. Like, we're losing games regularly 12-9. I mean, field goals were being kicked, touchdowns were being scored because there was no defense going on in there, man. There were big numbers. And this isn't changing clearly by that FAU score. These numbers are getting big. And we've seen some numbers in the MLB these last couple of years of 15-plus run games. I'd love to pull that stat next week. Candy, Motor City, Catsy. How many games involved a 15-plus or more runs scored last year, and because I'll bet it's double digits.
Even catchers nowadays are not really being taught to catch. They're just being taught to, like, it used to be like you catch a strike for a strike and a ball for a ball. Now we're not really teaching them how to receive the ball anymore. We're trying to teach them how to get strikes, which ultimately you're playing closer, which you saw what happened to Wilson Contreras' wrist that kept him out for a couple months. Now it's just, to me, the teaching's all screwed up. I mean, it's been that way because we're just too focused on that report that MLB did about why pitchers are getting hurt. Well, you basically paid a lot of money when the answer was right in front of you. You basically paid a lot for an answer that you already knew. And so, like, nowadays, no one's fundamentally sound. I mean, look at the Yankees in the World Series. They were not fundamentally sound for sure. And, now you got guys you're not really teaching guys how to pitch anymore. They're more throwers. Yeah, still got some pitchers in this league, but it's a league made up of throwers, and, forget wins and losses, which an argument can be made. An argument can be made for forgetting wins and losses, I think, because sometimes a guy goes deep in the game and he doesn't, and the reliever screws it up for him. But now pitchers aren't really eating innings anymore. You're burning the bullpen. I don't like what the direction baseball is going in that regard. And I think what it will take MLB kind of influences what happens at the younger levels, high school, college, little league, etc. Because every parent wants to say, I want my boy to get up there, even though the odds of that happening, you're going to spend a lot of money that you could spend on going to college, and he's not going to make it more often than not because it's hard. The talent pools are deeper now. It's not like when Bo Jackson was doing it.
It's funny. All right. Well, you know what? We're going to leave out the Bo Jackson note because that was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So just to get everybody an idea what's ahead on future editions of 108th edition baseball talk, I have a lot of great topics even lined up next week. Now we're getting into this baseball thing. And as a result, the topics that we have, we'll be bringing Mark Maraday when he gets on. George Eichhorn will be reappearing at some point, and I'm going to be looking for some other players as well and coaches as well as time goes on. But the three of us are Eric, myself, and Trent. You're going to see us all the time. Obviously, Trent, we saw exactly when we let the cat's out of the bag. We saw what this guy can do, right? And so we have to make sure we hand him the rock. But for all you got people that participated in the chat room, much appreciated. But there's a lot of great topics up ahead on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We're just getting started. I'm looking forward to get back to covering spring training games, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm trying to do whatever I can as well. So glad we had an opportunity to talk a little bit of college baseball tonight, Candy. Thank you very much for bringing up the Nugget, talking about FAU. So with that said, we'll have Candy give one more last station break, and then Cassie and Trent are going to go out there and give us their perspective. Also, Trent going to give us another opportunity to have him on Thursday on the Sports Exchange. And the one thing I want to do as we prepare for that show, that Trent's going to have an opportunity to talk about his podcast and talk about his book. So that'll be one segment strictly for Trent Clark. So you won't want to miss that episode on the Sports Exchange. We like to have our people come on different shows every once in a while. But Trent's got an unbelievable book, and we're going to make sure this guy gets every opportunity to promote it and his show. And we're glad he's willing to give us a hand on Thursday night. With that said, Candy, station break.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. It talks about Scott's 40-plus years in the media business and how it has changed. Old school media versus new school media. You'll have to purchase a book to see what pictures are in there. But I can tell you one of them, a young Scott with young Tommy Lasorda.
Tommy Lasagna.
Yeah, right. You don't forget enough of this guy.
Or yell at the media then too.
No, leave it to. Come on, Clark. Don't forget nothing.
If you want to be a guest on one of our shows, please email us southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to sponsor a show or advertise, Call Scott 954-304-4941. You can catch the audio version of our show wherever you get your podcast. Monday nights is baseball, Tuesday nights is football, Wednesdays on Sports Exchange, and Thursdays on Fire Up. You just never know what you're going to get, so tune in to find out. We had an awesome show previous to this tonight on No Limits, talking about the NeuroGuard Plus, which is a mouth guard discovered and invented by a dentist that decreases concussions down to like 2%. It's crazy ridiculous how low it goes. I don't know why, if you are playing any sports, you do not have this NeuroGuard. And I'll be honest with you, I was surprised for some of us that aren't in the big sports. It's not that expensive. You can get one for like $45. So go check out the podcast. Go listen to it. It was a great interview. Cool information. Like a lot of things I didn't know. But go check it out. There also was a great show last week on No Limits. It was Rachel Glavin. She's an actress. Go check out what Scott's done. He's done some awesome interviews lately. And then will be Super Bowl coverage is going up. You'll be able to see some of the videos and some of the questions Scott got to ask some of the key players and coaches. But our website also has a link to our merchandise store, plethora of great information. Go check it out. Don't miss anything. If you see that red subscribe button, hit it, like us, share us with all your friends and family. We want more subscribers. We want to get more information out. Love it. Back to you, Scott.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to turn it over to Eric. Let everyone know they can hold him. Give Trent a little extra time because he's got a lot to promote and he's going to get every opportunity to do so. Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead. And great job, my friend, Mr. Eric Katz. Awesome as usual.
You can follow me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, and be sure to check out my blog at bellyupsparks.com, where I covered a lot, where I wrote extensively about the upcoming free agency of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And if you think I hate your team, I do. And as a matter of fact, I hate all 30 teams when I write. So deal with it. But check out my blog, bellyupsparks.com.
Well, at least he's honest about it, right, Trent?
He's honest. Yeah.
We can't expect Eric tells it like it is. I wouldn't put him in the same sense as Howard Cosell because he's way better than him. So, and I'm not even going to hashtag Howard Cosell. I don't want to be bothered. I can't stand that idiot anyway.
He got famous by accident.
Yeah,
Howard Cosell got famous by accident.
Yeah, well, okay. Anyway, check out Eric's writing, and one of our segments that is weekly is Eric has a rant, and Eric will probably come up with one probably after the show or in the next few days, and we'll feature that at the top of every show. All right, Trent, the floor is yours. Podcast, book, whatever you want to talk about. It's all yours.
Yeah, Trent Clark, serial entrepreneur organization member. I own Leadershipity. I own an NIL education company. I own real estate. I'm all into coaching of teams. So look me up, Trent at leadershipity.com. There's my book, Leading Winning Teams. I hope you'll get out there, buy it. It's available in all the medias, both hardcover book, ebook, and audiobook, which is super exciting. And I am the host of the award-winning podcast, Winners Find a Way, and always excited to talk shop on the show. Every Thursday morning, we drop a new show live, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. And the podcast comes out every Friday on all the major networks. We do live show on Thursdays. So I'm always thrilled to be on 108 Stitches Monday night at 8 o'clock. And I'll be joining little hockey time on this Thursday, little show with the Motor City Mad Mouth, which I always look so forward to. You can find me at Trent at leadershipity.com and on all the socials at Trent M. Clark or at Leadershipity.
Anytime I get Trent on the show, it's a blessing. Eric, what can I say? Known you a while, and your potential so far, and your upside is so far from being obtained. You just continue to grow after every show, and Trent and I just get to watch it every week. We get our front show seat while you turn it loose. I won't lose my voice on there. I got Catsy going out there, and I can sit here and hashtag these shows all day long. And the longer Cats goes, the more I get, and the tougher it is for Kenny to break this show down. the Cats and Clark get on a roll. It's unbelievable. We've had a pretty good show, nearly 90 minutes on 24. And we haven't even had any of the other people on, but that just shows you the amount of knowledge here tonight on 108 such as Baseball Talk. We'll end it on one other note. Tomorrow night at around 8 o'clock, 8:10 Eastern time, we're going to have Inside the Picture. We're going to have a lot of the up-to-date topics as we get ready for the NFL Scouting Combine. Wait till you see what I got coming up with this show. We have a pretty interesting candid comment that I'll mention tomorrow night. But meanwhile, I want to thank Trent Clark for once again being my co-host on here. And I want to thank Eric Katz for being my top ranter. This guy is unbelievable. These guys are my we're the three, I don't know, the dynamic trio. We'll leave it at that because I don't want to be putting my foot in my mouth. I know what we can do together and look forward to anybody else that joins the program. So on behalf of Eric Katz and my co-host, Trent Clark, my name is Scott Morgan-Roth, the Motor City Man-Mouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of 108 Citrus Baseball Talk. And once again, for all those who participated in the chat room, I can't thank you very much. And you'll see us this time every week on Monday night. Thank you very much, and have a great evening. Enjoy the baseball, the spring training, and so forth. Good night, everybody.